Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated legacy action. Today we are playing some Reanimator. This is because I noticed a recent sort of change in some of the Reanimator decks where people have been having a bit of success with a green splash instead of the usual red splash. So I wanted to have a look at it and see how it felt. So we do have the core of the Reanimator plan here. So we've got some creatures we're putting in. We've got some entombs to put them into our graveyard. We've got this whole pile of things to bring them out of the graveyard. We can also use Unmask and Thoughtseize to put our own stuff into the graveyard to reanimate. And we do have the Troll to cycle in. Now this is something that Reanimated decks have been playing a bit anyway. They've sort of been doing a strategy that some people are calling Reanimator, where you have like Grief, Troll of Khazad-dum, and then you can also board into like Bowmasters and Doughty Voidwalk and just play like a reasonable fair game rather than trying to do with the broken things. But the broken things is more fun, so here are our broken things. We've got 2 Griselbrands, 2 Atraxas. These are just big things that draw a whole bunch of cards and do some good work for us. We have 2 Archon of Cruelty, just the best non-legendary creature you can put into play, really. And we have 1 Ghalta Stampede Tyrant. That's right, we're going for Dinosaur Town today. So this is a 12/12 Trampler. When it enters the battlefield, put any number of creature cards from your hand onto the battlefield. So not only do we have our like good creatures here, we also have these 8 creatures here. So we might be able to pick up like a free Grief or a Troll of Khazad-dum when we do our Ghalta, which is pretty exciting. It's nice to have, and if you ever have like another creature in play, this is just like another enabler. So I'm kind of excited to see how that pans out. We have the fast mana you'd expect to see, and yeah, it pretty much just looks like a Reanimator deck, except instead of playing red, we're sort of leaning into like the more griefy, scammy type package. However, in the sideboard is where things get a little bit more interesting. A few people have had some success recently by playing a Witherbloom Apprentice transformative sideboard. So, this card, whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So if you have this in play and you cast Chain of Smog, you target yourself. Then you get to copy it and target yourself. And you do that until your opponent has no life because you've drained them out with the Witherbloom Apprentice. Alternatively, you make infinite creatures with the Sedgemoor Witch. So that's kind of a backup plan that doesn't use a graveyard that we can sort of sideboard into. Now, quite what the in and out numbers are on bringing these in is a little bit tricky to say. So there's what? 12 cards. It's probably going to be a case of like removing a bunch of the reanimation spells and some of this top end, because we can still do like Reanimate, Grief, Troll of Khazad-dum. That's still a fine thing to have. And having black cards to pitch to Grief or to Unmask is probably fine. So it's probably going to be like 8 of these cards going out and then some number of these going out. Although maybe we want to be cutting some Entombs there. It's hard to say. We'll see how it feels when we get there. Obviously, if we're boarding in some like trophies and Duress, we get a bit more leeway for how we do that. But yes, this is the deck. I don't think I've got anything more to say about it, so like and subscribe and let's start jamming. If you're looking to play Legacy on MTGO like me, why not try Card Hoarder? They're a rental service that I personally use, and I found them better than other rental services that I've used in the past. So why not give them a try? All right, we're on the play for round 1. Now, our hand has like triple Grief that we can do, but then what are we doing? We're just trying to draw Reanimate. I think we can just draw something a bit more broken. So let's go for the broken in game 1. So this is a turn 1 Griselbrand. That seems probably an acceptable thing to be doing. Or a turn 1 Atraxa. We'll keep this. So we need to keep these 3. We need to keep a black card and Unmask. So basically we just choose which of these creatures we keep. I think the Atraxa goes here because we can just funnel the mana into the Griselbrand here. Unmask by targeting ourselves. We'll get rid of this Archon of Cruelty. So we have an Endurance. There's not really a way we get around this. Our opponent gets to see our hand, but they're about to see this card because we're about to cast it. Let's crack this. We get basic Swamp here. Let's get back our little friend. And we're just in. All right, let's draw some cards. I'd like to see our opponent's hand because they might be scooping in the near future. I don't think I need to activate this Griselbrand again. I think we can just pass here. Although, I don't think I'm desperate enough to, because we can't reanimate anyway. I think we just pass with all these things in hand. Now, if our opponent turn 1s us because they're a combo deck, then so be it. A Lotus Petal. All right. Cavern of Souls. Okay. Human. That's fine. Simian Spirit Guide. A Brutal Cathar. So with this trigger on the stack, I think we will draw 7 cards. All right, that's a lot of resources we have now. So how are we going to go about doing this? Step one is probably, let's play some Dark Rituals. Do we have a reanimation spell? It's just the Exhume, isn't it? So we can, I kind of want this Ghalta in our graveyard. I don't really want to Thoughtseize ourselves for it. I guess we can unmask ourselves. Let's grief first. Actually, no, we get the grief for free anyway. Let's hit ourselves here. We'll just exile one of these Thoughtseizes. We'll discard this. And then we'll cast Exhume, get Ghalta back, do all the things. Alright, so we're going to put Archon of Cruelty and Grief into play. And just keep on rolling. So we're looking at most likely the humans deck. So what do they have? I think we're probably just supposed to sideboard out of Graveyard Hate here. Sideboard away from that. So we have this package here. I think the Reanimate is still fine. We can reanimate our opponent's creatures. But the Exhume is definitely bad. And if we're trying to board out of this sort of combo, we're probably not looking... Can we get rid of Entomb? So we get rid of Entombs. And we get rid of all of these things. And how many are we bringing in? That's 60. That's pretty clean 60. Because Animate Dead can hit both graveyards. And, you know, reanimating this is fine. Reanimating Grief is fine. They've got creatures for us to hit. We still got the Sedgemoor Witches. They were supposed to come in instead of these Entombs, weren't they? Right. Yeah, so this seems reasonable. We don't have a really cool Entomb play that we can do. Do we think Duress is even going to be that good here is another question. I think it's... I'm not convinced by the Duress, but what else are we going to play in this slot? I guess we could maybe keep one Archon of Cruelty in as just a thing that we might be able to do something with. Because we can ramp this one out and it kind of is removal and stuff. Alright, we'll try this. I don't think Duress is going to be that useful in this matchup. Maybe on the play, but not on the draw. What does our hand do here? Not a lot. We can reanimate something our opponent has. We're only one card away from having infinite somethings. I think unmask our opponent, take their biggest threat is probably pretty reasonable. But Chalice for one could be pretty awkward. Like, we can obviously Assassin's Trophy that at some point, but they're not going to give us that amount of time in the game necessarily, because they are quite an explosive deck. Thalia. Okay. That's an annoying one. Dark Ritual. It's not really the one we're after right now, is it? So we can cast this here. What are we getting rid of? Is it Dark Ritual? Dark Ritual is kind of useful. I guess we don't have the green for the Assassin's Trophy. We're going to need a land whatever we do here. Alright, Anointed Peacekeeper, Surgical Extraction, Elite Spellbinder. Not a big lover of these cards, but our opponent doesn't really have anything else going on. If we take the Peacekeeper, reanimating it might not be that easy because they have the Surgical, but they also have this Thalia, which can stop their own Surgical. Alright, so found a City of Traitors. They can cast this Elite Spellbinder now. That's pretty good. That was a good rip for our opponent there. So they're going to look at our hand and they're going to think, what are we going to do here? Now, they could take the Dark Ritual to make it harder for us to double spell, because this is a Cabal Ritual at this point. So it does still increase mana. But if they take one of these, it's kind of annoying. But whatever they take here, we're not casting. Alright, so they've got the Reanimate off of us. Fair enough. And we start taking damage here. Thalia. A Witherbloom Apprentice. Well, we're on the way. But we're going to need to find 2 lands. One that produces green mana. So we're a little ways off here. We don't have absolutely buckets of time here either. Their clock is pretty substantial. Alright, we just don't have any lands. Sure. Alright, we'll take a... Okay, we didn't hit a land this turn. So how are we supposed to... What can we draw here? I don't think we've got any draws that help get us out of this one. But we'll see if our opponent wants to show us any more cards from their deck. This is unlikely to be a match that goes to time, so might as well use it to gain a little bit more information about our opponent's deck. Chalice. No, okay. We're just going to play another human here. Chalice of the Void where X equals 1. Okay. Not a human. But pretty good. So this is too little too late here. Alright. Now, what plan is better here? I think they've shown us stuff that means that if we're on the play, we probably just want to do the most broken thing we can do, right? So we're probably looking at not having this plan and bringing back all of this. There is an argument to have the... Yeah, there's an argument to have the Assassin's Trophy as an option for us. Do we want Duress? I don't think we need Duress here to get round like Surgical. I think it's fine. No, I think we'll just ball in with the Reanimator. And now our opponent's got to think what they're going to keep in because they've seen some of our transformation. Okay, yeah, I like this. We can get Ghalta and then Atraxa on turn 2 after Thoughtseizing on turn 1. It's a pretty strong opener. I don't believe they have Leylands because they showed us the Surgical. Opponent's on 6. Let's see if we can disrupt them. We should hopefully have an idea of how this game is going to go after doing this. Spirit Guide. Mox. Thalia. Interesting. So we could take the Chrome Mox, and if they don't hit a land, they don't get to cast any spells. That seems a little bit fast and loose. We can take the Chalice here, because we definitely can't beat that. Although, this is a really tough pick. So we could go for the baller play of let's take their Chrome Mox and hope that they can't put a Thalia into play, or a Chalice into play. Like, we're not beating the Chalice though. So I think the correct play here is to take the Chalice. Alright, so they can make a turn 1 Thalia, which will slow us down for a turn. But if they don't have a land this turn, then we're in good shape. Archon of Cruelty, sure. Okay, they found a land. That's terrible news for us. Alright. Yep, so there's that Thalia we knew about. Because this annoying Peacekeeper is actually pretty irritating. So if we Entomb now, next turn they just play this Peacekeeper and name Reanimate, and then we're not going anywhere. So we have to take out this Peacekeeper. And then next turn, we Entomb, and then the turn after we Reanimate. We might have to get the Archon due to our life total taking a bit of a hit. Right, so we're probably going to see the Simian Spirit Guide played as a creature here. There it is. Exhume. That's not really the one here. So we'll pass. Take 4 and go to 10. So they have a follow-up. It's just a guy. Alright. So that's a pretty good draw for our opponent. So we have 10 life, but we're probably just casting Exhume this turn. If we cast Exhume, they get a guy back. So we have to draw a land is what. So we have to draw a land or a Dark Ritual here. So if we put in a Griselbrand, we're not going to have the life to really do anything with it. If we put a Ghalta in, we get Ghalta and then Atraxa. That's 2 things. But we don't get to disrupt their creatures. They're probably not going to kill our creatures, so the lifelink is going to be pretty useful. I think it is the Ghalta here. The other option is the Archon, because this will come back and immediately take out one of their guys. And that's pretty reasonable as a thing to be doing. But having 2 creatures, including the Atraxa, seems stronger. So I'm going to put Ghalta in. Now, if we don't draw a land, we're kind of in trouble. We can't actually draw the Dark Ritual. Okay, we drew a land. This is fine. We don't really care what this names, because it's not really going to make a difference. Because the 1-drops we can't cast anyway, and the Atraxa's coming into play. They could name something else from our deck, to be fair. But right now, this is going to be okay for us. And we get to put in our Atraxa. This happens before this goes on the stack, because this is an as, not a when. So this just happens, and there's nothing you can do about it. And then the trigger from this will go on the stack. This Ghalta does actually seem pretty good. I'm already reaching for it in round 1. So what do they name? Griselbrand. So that means if we put Griselbrand into play, we can't activate it. So let's put in this Atraxa. Let's get some stuff here. So we don't really want 1-drops here. I'll take this artifact. I'll take this land. I'll take this enchantment. And I'll take this instant. And then, do you want to just have this troll? Because we can cycle this troll. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So if we do this, we'll discard the Archon of Cruelty. because the amount of cards we'll have in hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Sure. So then at end step, we won't play anything. We'll just chuck our Archon into the bin. Then next turn we can exhume that. So we just have to not die this turn, which, from the position we're in, seems difficult for us to die, but not impossible. Brutal Cathar is pretty good here. Elite Spellbinder is going to take our Exhume, but we can still cast it. Actually, no, we can't because the Thalia is going to tax us on this petal. So not the Exhume, the Animate Dead. But we have a 7/7 Vigilance guy. I've taken this, but we can still just do the Animate Dead. All right, yeah. So we had 2 reanimation spells. They couldn't take them both. So we just get to reanimate the Archon and then swing for 19. Pretty good. Okay, happy with that one. Let's go to round 2. Opening hand does not play Magic the Gathering, so we're going to mulligan. We can keep this. So if we go Swamp, Dark Ritual, cycle this, reanimate it. Well, first off, we're going to do a Grief. And then we'll decide if we're reanimating the Grief or if we're reanimating the Troll. Put this one out. Let's see what you're working with, opponent. If they're a combo matchup where we want to get a second Grief down. Alright, Flickerwisp, Stoneforge Mystic, Thalia. None of these cards are particularly scary right now. I think we take the Stoneforge here. Let's swamp cycle this guy. Swamp, we don't need to show them any Bayous yet. Let's just put a Troll into play. It's a 4-turn clock. I think that's the correct pick here. Like, we could take their Thalia and just strand them for a little bit longer. I think we just want to put our opponent on the back foot in a big way. We will play out this Lotus Petal because our opponent has a Thalia, so we don't want to get taxed out later on down the line. So they can Flicker Wisp out our Animate Dead. That's kind of an interesting play. But it will just come into the play as an aura and bring back our guy, right? Because when it enters the battlefield, it loses its enchant creature card in the graveyard and gains enchant creature. Okay, no, so that's not actually going to work. That will take out our Animate Dead entirely, won't it? Maybe we're supposed to take the Flicker Wisp there. But we should... You know, we've got a load of reanimation spells in our deck. We've got a load of discard. Right, this is a Plains from our opponent. There's a Thalia. Come on, deck, give us some goods. That's interesting. So you can crash for 5 again, but they can Flicker Wisp this Animate Dead. That's not going to be amazing for us. Maybe we should have just done the double Grief, but then we'd only be swinging for 2, and that gives our opponents so much time to do stuff in this game. And all they need really is time, and then they get to win. It's generally what Death and Taxes wants to do. So I think I like the play that we made still, and I think I would probably do it again. But it looks like we're not going to necessarily draw into anything that's going to be relevant here. We're not drawing into discard or a reanimate effect. A Skyclave Apparition. This is going to take the Animate Dead. And it's going to be similar to doing Flicker Wisp, except now they can Flicker Wisp their Skyclave Apparition. Alright, so we need to find some way of bringing back a creature here. I believe our opponent is heavily favoured at this point. It's got a land. We don't have any Faithless Looting type effects. There's no point holding a land in hand to discard. We can hardcast Griefs. That's okay. And the Flooded Strand. We're now taking 4 a turn. So our opponent's going to be winning the race pretty soon in terms of total damage, as well as the fact they have the additional pressure in play right now. Whereas we're looking for something. Not quite the one. Alright, what are we going to see here? Okay, they're playing Samwise end of turn. That buys back their Flooded Strands. They can just keep making mana. They haven't got a Yoran in their list either. They're a 60-card D&T. There's a Flooded Strand that they just picked up. There's a Mother of Runes. I think it's all gone a bit wrong from here. If we can get one of our big monsters into play, it will do a lot of work. But we've not got many turns left to do that. 2, 4, 6. Very surprised they didn't play out the Flicker Wisp there, because it would be lethal damage on the next turn. Just play out the land. 2, 4, 6 damage. 7 if they tap the Mother of Runes to attack with, which they probably should do, because we're not the sort of deck that really messes with creatures in play. So now even if we reanimate on our next turn, we are dead still, right? And we don't have any way of like Faithless Looting through these cards, then bringing back the Ghalta and doing some cool stuff that way. So I think we are just dead here. I value my time. Alright, I think we will try the transformational sideboard here. So it's like these, this, the Exhumes, and the Entombs. I don't really like Animate Dead very much in this matchup, but I think acceptable enough. Okay, I'm down with this. We'll keep this. This is a turn 3 kill. If we find a Dark Ritual, we can change that up a little bit. We can lead off with... I think we save the Reanimate for our Witherbloom Apprentice. So if it dies somehow. So Battle of Bywater, Mother of Runes, Thalia. Not really a big fan of what I'm seeing here. Is it Stoneforge at the Thalia? It's probably the Thalia here. Battle of Bywater is not going to do anything here. There's the Caracas. That's good against our Reanimate stuff, but we've kind of taken all that out, so that's pretty tasty. Another black card is pretty exciting. I think we Grief, pitching the Unmask. What did they draw? A Swords to Plowshares. That's a pretty good one to take out here. Let's Bayou and play Witherbloom Apprentice. Now, their removal is usually white removal, so we don't really get to reanimate our guy, but we still have the Reanimate backup plan of just getting a Grief and going to town with it. But if our opponent can't answer our Witherbloom Apprentice, they might be forced to play Rishdam Port and hold it up, but then they still die if we draw any mana source. So it's kind of an awkward spot for them. Right, they're just playing the Stoneforge and saying, we hope you don't have it. If we get to untap, then we're in a better position. That's kind of their logic on this one. Quarter complete. So this is the game, I believe. Unless they have exactly Solitude. But we can kind of play around this. If they have a Solitude, it's bad for us. But we get to bring back our Grief. And get ourselves a little peek at their hand just to make sure the coast is clear. And we also just get to use all of our cards before we... Right, none of this does anything. Let's tag ourselves as Chain of Smog. Alright, so we just chain this and then our opponent dies. That was pretty good. What do we want to do for game 3? That's kind of the tricky one. So we're on the draw, which makes some of the Reanimator stuff a lot worse. I do like Assassin's Trophy. Is there a halfway house here where we don't go full combo of either way? Or is that just making our deck worse in 2 different ways? Interesting. Really tough. I think we do want to be doing some more Reanimate type stuff here. Because at least these things have value when they're going to be like relying on removal a little bit more than they were a second ago. So maybe this is still better than the Chain of Smog plan. Take these out. Take out the Apprentices. The Animate Dead is a little bit less exciting here. Got chains. And I'm going to take out 1 Animate Dead and 1 Troll. It's kind of part of our mana base though, so it's a little bit sketchy. We'll try this. We want to keep these Assassin's Trophies in, I think. So we can get rid of like a problem permanent like Thalia. If that's causing us some issues. Or we can get rid of other bits and pieces. Like, what does this hand do? It like makes Grief. But that's not really good enough against Death and Taxes. We need to mulligan. This is turn 1 Thoughtseize. I don't really want this in hand, so we'll put that away. Yeah, so we can Thoughtseize to stop the Thalia, and then we can Entomb and try and Reanimate Dead. And we can get something that gives us a big chunk of value when it comes in, like an Atraxa or a Griselbrand, so that even if they have the removal, we then have the next round to go. That's the idea, at least. The other option here was to turn 1 Ghalta in our graveyard with the Thoughtseize, but that's just making a 12-12, which isn't going to be good. A turn 2 12-12 with no interaction will probably lose us the game. No play from our opponents. That's good news. We don't want to have a Vial and start porting us. Play this. We'll go and fetch ourselves up a little basic swamp. I'll fire in this Thoughtseize. What have they got? Brutal Cathar, Extraction Specialist, Solitude. Not really massively bothered by any of these. I guess the Solitude is kind of the most annoying. Brutal Cathar can hit any creature, but we can get it back if that creature dies, and we already have creature removal. So I think we'll take the Solitude here. Also, at push, we can always just get the Solitude back, but we have to be careful they don't Flicker Whisper and get it back themselves. There's the Caracas. And no play from our opponent, sure. We'll pass the turn. Wasteland, sure. An Aethervar, so that's the Drew this turn. Just get another Swamp here. Cast an Entomb. I think we get the Archon of Cruelty here. And I will Swamp Cycle this for a Bayou so that we have the Assassin's Trophy if, as and when we need it. Interesting. So we can Grief away this Flicker Wisp or Brutal Cathar. Probably the Flicker Wisp here. That's actually worse for us than the Brutal Cathar, I think. Because this can only hit creatures, if I remember rightly, yeah. Samwise. So what does this exactly say? One permanent card is put into there from the battlefield this turn. Okay, so we don't care about that. So we take the Flicker Wisp here. Then we get back our Archon, and then they Brutal Cathar it. Then we kill their Brutal Cathar and get back our Archon again. That's kind of how I've drawn this one up. This also gets us a nice little cheeky bit of value. We get to ignore this Caracas. Another Archon of Cruelty. Okay, so discarded the Samwise. That seems very wise to me. So they're going to plus their Ether Vial here. I think they're going to hard cast the Brutal Cathar. Yep, there it is. This game is panning out exactly as I suspected. They have to hit the Archon of Cruelty, so it goes away. A fetch land would be actually kind of nice here, because then we can hold up and try and kill something else with the Archon of Cruelty. Alright, so we'll play out this Bayou. I think we're just supposed to hit this now. Just get our guy back. If we hit a Reanimate or something, or a Thoughtseize off the draw from the Archon, that's going to be really good for us. We don't want this to flip and get ward either, because we don't want to spend life where we don't have to. Alright. What are they going to discard here? The Flicker Wisp. Interesting. So they've got one card in hand. Just get back a Grief. Just take that last card. Alright. They're living off the top. We have 12 damage in play right now. Good luck, opponent. Not too much luck, though. But Battle of Bywater is pretty good here. Wish I hadn't spoken that into existence. But maybe we've dodged. Yep, we dodged. Okay, so 2-0. Pivoting back between the options is quite nice. We did get some sideboard with the Bloom kill there. So let's go to round 3. Right, we are on the play for round number 3. We can Thoughtseize and then make a Troll on turn 2. That's pretty reasonable. Sure, I think I'll keep this one. It's kind of a bit fairer than I would like. Now the other option is we Thoughtseize ourselves and then turn 2 bring it back. But that seems like a bit of a reckless one to me. Let's just go and get ourselves a basic swamp. Thoughtseize our opponent. See what's going on over there. And then work out how we want to play this. Alright, this is definitely a thing I wanted to Thoughtseize. So, what is our opponent doing? Chrome Marks, Thoughtseize, Cabal Ritual, a whole bunch of stuff. This is like monoblack Saga Storm. They got some manas there. If we take the Wish Claw, that kind of cuts them off of doing some things. If we take the Chrome Mox, they have no black mana. Pretty down for cutting them off of black mana, to be honest. Let's try that out. I think that's the highest upside play, because if they don't find a swamp here, right, or any black mana, and they don't get to do anything this turn. That doesn't do anything yet. Okay, so now we can just reanimate our troll, which is a reasonable clock. Let's swamp cycle this. Let's get another swamp. Let's crack this. Get another swamp. We don't need to show our opponent any green mana yet. Let's get this troll and start cracking away at our opponent's life total. Next turn, we can put another troll into play, and that'll be our opponent dead on the following turn. Actually, it won't be. It'll be 6 and then 12. So it'll be 2 short. Right, Thoughtseize is certainly a welcome one. Let's attack. I think a Thoughtseize here is more important than anything else. They're about to get this coming off, so we want to take out the Wishcore Talisman so they can't toot or anything here. And we'll play this one out. And then we'll pass with the intention of swamp cycling this troll away so we can exhume it to guarantee the kill the turn after. Right, so putting Chrome Mox into play. We're going to see here probably the Duress or the Thoughtseize that goes underneath it, I would imagine. There's the Duress. So we've got 3 cards in hand. We know 2 of them and they don't go anywhere. If they Thoughtseize here, it does impact the clock. Because the Thoughtseize means we kill them in 2 turns. If they don't Thoughtseize, we kill them in 2 turns. So it's kind of not really much of a difference for them. Obviously, they don't know that. We still don't have Metalcraft either. Alright, so they are Thoughtseizing us. They're going to take the Exhume, but this isn't going to impact our clock because now we have 2 swings with our troll. I think I will cycle this still. What do we got for us, deck? A Reanimate, you say? Can we do anything exciting with that? Not really. It's just going to make our life total go lower and we don't need it to. Our opponent's not really going to interact with our guys. And they're not going to be able to block our guy either. So we'll just pass the turn here. I don't feel the need to go to 2 and just let them randomly get a single Tendrils to kill us. So this will get them potentially a Lion's Eye Diamond. They will know if they have a line because they've drawn their card. Okay, they didn't have a line. Excellent. So, how is our opponent going to approach this one? I think we're going to do a full-on pivot again. So, the Entombs and the Archons, all this sort of stuff goes. We get the Duress in. Get all this stuff in. The trophies can blow up Wishcore Talisman, which is pretty exciting. Can also blow up an Urza Saga. Get these witches in. Actually, are the witches good? They're quite slow. I don't think the witches are quick enough to be useful. Like, infinite creatures isn't really going to get us there. It's good against the Saga side of their deck, I suppose, if we can rely on the rest of our disruption. So maybe I'm down for that. Was there 2 more that need to come in? What am I missing here? We've got these Unmasks. Got the Reanimates here. It's these 2 Atraxas as well that we don't really... It's because we're taking out the Animate Deads. So I think we want the Animate Deads in so we can reanimate our grief as much as possible. We can also just do the fair Chain of Smog. Just him to Turak our opponent a little bit. Okay. Keep this. Dark Ritual we win. But we've got some interaction. Our opponent can't play Veil of Summer in their particular build because they are on Black Saga. Okay, they're going to Duress us. What would you like to take, opponent? How do you think this game is going to go for you? It's either the Thoughtseize or it's the Chain of Smog. It depends what our opponent is up to with their hand. Like, if they just want to get to like turn 2 or 3, they're going to take the Thoughtseize. They're taking the Thoughtseize and they're playing out a Petal. Lion's Eye Diamond. Alright, they have Metalcraft off this Mox Opal. And nothing to follow up with. They have 2 cards in hand. I think I want to unmask them. And we will pitch our Sedgemoor Witch. Ad nauseam, get out of here. Right, so then we'll do this and this. And we just play the Apprentice right now. Now our opponent's got nothing in hand. If we draw a land, we get to win. Dark Ritual is also a win. Our opponent, if they have Wishcore Talisman, what does that do? Okay, so they're going to Thoughtseize and take this Chain of Smog. I'm going to play that Vault of Whispers. So we've got a clock. Our opponent doesn't. They can't really Ad Nauseam because we've already got rid of the Ad Nauseam. Just beat down in slow mode. Now they have a lot of resources. If they find something, they've got the mana to do some stuff with it. So like a Beseech the Mirror is going to be a pretty good draw. Wishcore Talisman also pretty good. They might be inclined to wait 1 turn and untap, so they've got more mana to use it. If they pass this to us and we have a Dark Ritual, they will lose the game. So that's something they have to be a little bit aware of. What do they do? They only have 4 mana. If they do this, they can Beseech the Mirror into Gaia's Will, which then lets them play 1, 2, 3 more spells. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I think they are 1 short, if my maths holds. Because our kill is an infinite one. It's a bit of a risky one to give us the thing, even if they can like gain a bunch of life here. Not under a lot of pressure, so if I were them, I would probably just pass the turn. None of our hand disruption does anything here. We don't have the mana to do any Assassin's Trophy type stuff, so I think it is safe just to have more mana when they untap next turn. And that gives them a guaranteed win, I believe, using the 2 discard spells in their graveyard as well. That's provided they are playing Beseech the Mirror and Gaia's Will. They might not be on that, they might just be on Wishclaw lines. If they're playing Ad Nauseam as well, they're a lot less likely to have. Alright, they're going for it. We might not be able to punish them here either. Should be a shame. They haven't cracked their LED in response, which is interesting. I think they've just seen that. Right, so our opponent's given us a lot of leeway to win here. We're not getting there now. If we had drawn to that ritual, we could have won there, but we didn't. Has our opponent got another Wishclaw? Do the same play that they were going to do last turn? Or they got something else? Right, it's to Beseech the Mirror, cracking the lines I diamond in response. There we go. So this gets Gaia's Will, I believe. And they play this, this, and this. I don't have a Storm counter just yet. So Storm count 5. They've got 6, 7, 8 mana right now. So 4. So this is going to be Storm 5, 6, 7, 8. I guess they can Wishclaw and go and fetch. Oh, they're just going to cast an Ad Nauseam from 14. Interesting. I think they could have got the Dark Ritual and tried it that way. Right, let's see what our opponent's revealing. Mox Diamond, Crow Mox, Lotus Petal. Like, this has got to be enough here. Yes, they still have this Beseech the Mirror they get to cast. So we got to see a chunk of their deck there. I don't think our opponent's going to be doing much to interfere with us. I think we're going to board out of the alternate plan and just go for the quickest, meanest Reanimator I can do. I will keep the Duress though. That is a good one here. Ghalta. That's 61 cards, so we need to fit something in for this Duress. What is the thing we fit in? Maybe we trim 1 Troll, because Troll's probably not going to cut it that much. Is just a Thoughtseize good enough here? I guess we have Thoughtseize and Unmask. And then we get to reanimate the Troll, but then where are we going? I think we could do better. I think we could do something more explosive and busted. This does not look like explosive and busted, so maybe we have sunk ourselves a little bit. Maybe the 1 Thoughtseize would have been alright, but we'll see. Yuck. Need lands. Need lands. I guess we're going to 3. This hand doesn't do anything. Yuck. I guess we should have kept that one hand that wasn't very good. Okay, we get to keep one of these things, so I guess we keep the Entomb. Oh no, we're going to have to put 5 cards back. How lucky. Right, we'll keep an Unmask and a Entomb. I don't think a Troll on turn 2 is good enough in this matchup because they can take 3 hits from it and then die. And then kill us. So we'd be clocking them on like turn 5, which is just not acceptable. Considering how broken our deck can be. But not running red is obviously not without its downsides. Because we don't get things like Faithless Looting to have more ways of putting creatures in and fixing our hand a little bit. Alright, so we probably die when this comes off of Suspend. Or we might just die next turn. That's also a thing that can happen. Alright. We don't have any agency in this game. We melted 2. Right, our opponent's Thoughtseizing us here. Goodbye, Unmask. I have to keep a 2 card hand with no mana sources in. So they can beat us down with Saga, they can do all sorts. It's going to be a 3-3, and then it can be a 5-5 next turn if they just make guys here. That's probably as good a way of any of winning the game. Like, we need 2 draws to even be in this game. And we might not get them. Okay, so they didn't make a construct. They just wanted the Lion's Eye Diamond and the mana. So this is almost certainly going to end in our death. Infernal Tutor. You going to crack that Lion's Eye Diamond? Yeah, sure. So this is 5 mana. This should be deterministic at this point. Although the guy's will's already in the graveyard. Alright, we're just going for an Ad Nauseam. Oh, Ad Nauseam with Beseech the Mirror in your deck, though. Alright. The hand doesn't win the game presently. Or does it actually? They've got to Beseech the Mirror, right? So they can go Dark Ritual, Beseech into Tendrils. Is that enough? Like, it's fine. They don't need to keep flipping here because we're not doing anything. They might as well just do that, get a little Tendrils in, get a little beat with a Construct token. That's probably fine. There's no need to take another card here. They can even Infernal Tutor for Dark Ritual, then play the Mox, Dark Ritual, Beseech the Mirror. They don't need to... There's basically like a million lines here and they all lead to victory. It's kind of what happens when you're just goldfishing against an opponent who's done nothing. Right. So there's Dark Ritual. Storm is 5. We're just going to let our opponent play it out because they said they're new to the deck and they want to get some reps in. So yeah, the line I said with the Infernal Tutor getting the Dark Ritual would have been lethal. This is going to be lethal as well. They can just go and get... They get Tendrils here. They don't have to cast... I guess they can go Beseech the Mirror again. And that also does it. Our opponent has... so they messed up the turn a little bit. And they've just cast Tendrils on us. And, you know, they are gonna beat us. It's just a matter of time, really. Right, so they can just go and get some stuff next turn to win. We're not doing anything here. We're just going to scoop to them now, I think. I really don't think we're going to be able to win here. They have 2 Wishcore Talismans. I think the cards they have left in hand is Mox Opal and Infernal Tutor. Alright, so we lost that one. But we did mulligan to Absolute Oblivion, which is fair enough. I think if we'd have kept that opening hand with the Thoughtseize into turn 2 Troll, we might have been okay. I think our opponent's hand, from what we saw of it, would have been able to navigate that anyway. But we could have been in a better spot than, obviously, the spot we're in, which was Oblivion. Counting Troll of Khazad-dum as part of your mana base does come at a cost. Not like we didn't draw a Troll here anyway, so it's not as if we would have drawn a land, but nevertheless, we have taken our first loss. Let's go to round 4. Once again, struggling with mana sources. Let's mulligan. We have no way of putting a creature into our graveyard. We can do a turn 1 Grief, Reanimate Grief. Is that line acceptable? Putting these cards... I guess we put one of these cards back. And then we pitch the other to the Grief. I guess this is acceptable, but I'm not really happy about it. So we get rid of the Griselbrand. Are we okay with that? Yes. So we have to work out pitching. So this pitches to the Grief. And then we just... I think we use our Lotus Petal on this one. So we'll pitch this. This isn't how I really wanted this turn to go. But, alright. Okay, that's some stuff right there. Play this out. Crack this. Just cast an Exhume. Get back this guy. Paradox Engine does some pretty busted stuff, but Karn is also pretty good. I think we take the Karn here, and then we maybe try and threaten another creature somewhere along the lines. That's not really within our control, though. So the Tomb's gone. And now they drew a Lotus Petal for turn. Okay. A Lotus Petal. So we can hard cast another Grief if we find one. I think it's worth playing the Lotus Petal out. Suppose it could get hit by a Karn, but then if they're doing Karn stuff anyway, it doesn't really matter. Alright, there's the Ezra's Workshop. There's a defense grid. That's not really going to help them, but it gives them Metalcraft, which this requires. Another Lotus Petal. Alright. We have 5 mana now, so pretty close to hard casting a Troll. I think we draw a Troll, we keep it in hand. There's a City of Traitors. We're going to see the Paradox Engine as well. And now we need to find something before they just get to go wild with this. Archon of Cruelty. That's not quite the one we need. Our opponent is down to 7. Tapping their Ancient Tomb obviously hurts them a fair bit. Alright, Urza Saga. What is that last card they have in their hand? Nothing interesting, apparently. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we're 1 mana off of casting this, which will be lethal. So if we find a land next turn, that can be lethal. So maybe that'll be enough. But we'll see. Found the land. Alright. Let's attack. This has Menace, so they wouldn't be able to block it if they make a token. Which is 3 mana. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let's play the big boy. The old 8 mana lightning bolt, that's what that was. But it won the game. So I think our opponent might be running Leyline of the Void out of the sideboard. Because they're a colourless deck, they don't have the most amount of angles for interaction. Take out these Exhumes. Take out these Entombs. Atraxa can go as well. Bring in this pile of stuff. Bring in this pile of stuff. And that's around 60. We do still have a little bit of like Animate Dead, Reanimate stuff going on. But there's not really any getting away from that. So I think we just submit here. This is a turn 3 Goldfish that gets through the One Ring. But it's on the draw. So our opponent will have 3 turns to interact with us. That's quite a lot. I do think we still keep it, but it could definitely go wrong. Yep, so there's the ley line. So hopefully our opponent kept their hand based on the power of the ley line. Any acceleration massively helps us out here. Right, so there. Urza Saga is going to come off of the thing before. Okay, so now we just get to win the game. That's exciting. So this is 3 mana. We cast this. And we Chain of Smog ourselves. Alright. Yeah, we got there. So the little grief package, the double grief on turn 1 was good enough. So that was pretty nice. It sort of managed to go all the way there, but our opponent was a combo deck that just didn't find the pieces. And then this time we just happened to draw the stuff to go off turn. We could have gone off 1 turn later, but our opponent's Urza Saga comes off. They didn't have a second land though, so I think we probably still win this even if we don't draw the Dark Ritual, because our opponent's hand seemed pretty slow, unless they were going to do Echo lines, but we didn't see that in game 1. So yep, once again, the sideboard plan coming up trumps in the face of a ley line. Let's go to the final round and see if we can put a 4-1 on the board. Winning die rolls is not a bad place to be. We get to make a big scary turn 1 thing with Thoughtseize. Yeah, sign me right up. We might be able to do multiple things as well. So let's do the thing. This is more akin to the sort of broken hands you really want with this. Let's get our Marsh Flats on the go. Let's go and get a Swamp here. Now, do you counterspell this Dark Ritual? They did not. Alright, you're going to have a bad time, opponent. I'm telling you now. You're going to have a bad time. Stoneforge, Step Through, Nomad's Encore, Ponder. Interesting. Guess it's the Step Through that goes here. Like, it shouldn't matter because of how broken our turn is about to be, but do an Entomb. I think Atraxa is the get here. And we reanimate Atraxa. Okay, I want this Entomb. I want this Reanimate, I guess. Take this Bayou. Take this Animate Dead. And Archon of Cruelty, I guess. That's all of the things. Then we will cast an Entomb here. We'll go and get ourselves a Grief, I think. Is that the one? Or no, we get the Ghalta here, right? If we put this into play, what's this mana cost? 5, 6, 7, 8. So we'll go to 2. I can go to 2 here. We're going to gain 7 next turn. The only way they'll remove this is with a plow or something. So, right, our phone's had enough. Yeah, Ghalta. Wasn't really essential then. We could have just got anything, but this does allow us to just put 2 fatties in, and our opponent has 1 turn where they cast Ponder and then loses the game. All right. I believe our opponent is going to have some amount of graveyard hate. So I believe we are going to do the thing that's been working quite well for us. Duress isn't actually very good against breakfast because you can duress them and they'll just have their entire combo that you can't interfere with, and that's very frustrating. So we take out all these large and in charge creatures. Exhume doesn't seem right where we want to be here. That's 59 because we're not bringing in the Duress. Do we want the Duress though? I think it's probably okay. It's probably better than boarding in these things unless we want to keep like a modest Reanimate packaging, but I don't think we do. So we've got a little bit of removal which might come up, and we can just do like a grief scam thing and disrupt them. Our opener has a little bit of disruption. It doesn't really go anywhere, and our mana sources aren't the friendliest, so we're going to mulligan this. This doesn't really have anything going on for either. Yikes. I guess we can keep this. Realistically, how much mana do we need here? You can probably put back a land here. And then what is the other card? Probably a Sedgemoor Witch. Because we can just cycle the troll for mana when we need it. Or we can funnel it into an Unmask if that's what we need. The good thing about this is when our opponent wins, we'll get to see their whole deck most likely. So we'll at least know what they've sideboarded. They will be seeing this Sedgemoor Witch pretty early on though. So that might give them an inkling that we're doing something a bit different. There's a Nomads and Core. That's a guy for sure. Black card wouldn't be bad here. A Reanimate. That's a very good black card. Alright, let's do this. We can triple discard our opponent's turn if we really want to. Force of Will. So we have the option here of pitching this Troll of Khazad-dum, which could shut down a lot of options for us in the future. I think it is right to do. And then we can either reanimate the troll. Sorry, we can't reanimate the troll. We can just reanimate the grief here. Because we have to exile it for the Unmask. Because if it was discard a card to make Unmask happen, then this card would be broken. Just a Cephalid Illusionist. Interesting. Are we supposed to reanimate right now? Or do we take 1 draw step, let them take 1 draw step, and then reanimate and try and hit a card from their hand? I don't know, maybe that's greedy, but that's the line I'm going for. Because they've got some pretty scary 3-drops in their deck. Like a Teferi can be a real pain because it can bounce stuff, and if we spent a load of effort trying to get something into play, it's just not where we want to be. This also gives us a chance to draw a troll this turn. And at this stage I would rather have the bigger clock. Get your 1 damage in with that Nomads. And Animate Dead. That's not nothing, but let's go and get our grief going. If we snipe a 3-drop here, we'll feel pretty good about ourselves. A Narcomoeba. Right, that's not nothing, but it's not exactly something either. We can get ourselves a 0-1 Cephalid Illusionist or Narcomoeba if we feel the need at some point with our Animate Dead, because this hits any graveyards. But our opponent is in a better spot here because they're a blue deck. They're going to have a load of cantrips and stuff. They just need to find one thing and they get to go off. Whereas we kind of just have to beat down with this little grief. They're going to play this Underground Seer. They're going to hold it for Brainstorms. They're going to hold it for Brainstorms, sure. Right, let's attack. This is 6 turns that our opponent has to find their combo. Cantrips also pretty good. Because they didn't play their land, I don't feel the need to try and Animate Dead. So we might have to Animate Dead their Cephalid Illusionist if we're worried they're going to hard cast a Dread Return on it. As weird a play as that is. Because they have the black available. And let's be honest, what else is this Animate Dead doing? Losing the Lotus Petal is a big deal though. We'll see what we draw. Okay. So the issue here is, if we Animate Dead onto a Cephalid Illusionist here, we cut off the Dread Return line, which we know 100% is in our opponent's deck. However, this does turn on Teferi as an option to bounce this, to bounce the Cephalid Illusionist back to their hand and then go off the following turn. So that's kind of a pretty problematic little choice for us here. We don't have anything good to do with our Animate Dead, really. So I think we are supposed to just cut them off this line. Now, if our opponent hasn't worked out what we're doing, they're going to think it's a bit of a weird play. But this stops us from just losing straight up to Dread Return. Just have Dread Return in their hand, that's really bad for us. This in the graveyard. However, if it's in their hand, they also need enough creatures left in their deck, Narcomoeba-wise, to Cabal Therapy themselves. So they might have to just cast a Dread Return on something else first anyway. Right, so there's the 4th mana. No attack, that's interesting. A Dark Ritual. Well, that solves some of our mana problems. Right, so we'll put our opponent to 9, so we've got 3 more attack steps to get through. They still haven't found a cantrip yet, which is unusual. Alright, I think we're going to see one here. Oh no, blue. The Thassa's Oracle to draw... sorry, not draw a card, to filter. That's interesting. That suggests to me that our opponent has a Dread Return in hand. And they want to try and block with this. But we have a Cephalid Illusionist, which we can use its ability of. Unfortunately, it can only target our own creatures, so it's kind of annoying. So we attack with this, they can double block and kill our grief. It's become an interesting little dance of a game. A Witherbloom Apprentice. So if we attack, they double block, and we either put their Oracle into their graveyard, which is probably where they want it, or we put the Nomads in, but then we lose our pressure. So I think we just have to pass here. If we draw a Chain of Smog, we can just try and win the game. Right, our opponent's first ponder of the game. Pretty good. They have a fetch land as well, so they can just take 1 card off of it and then shuffle. Or take 2 cards and shuffle. They've got a pretty good set of possibilities ahead of them here. They shuffled. Okay, that's a nice sign for us. We haven't given them anything to counterspell for a while that's worth counterspelling. So that's definitely a thing they could have. We're going to see a plow on our grief. We are going to see a plow on our grief. We're going to see some Thassa's Oracle, Nomads and Core beatdown. Yeah, get in the red zone. Merfolk versus Squid. Right, it's got 2 cards in hand. A Lotus Petal. I will play it out. It's unlikely we're going to need to use our Cephalid Illusionist to protect itself. But it's not an impossibility. If we had a reanimation spell, then maybe there's a temptation to try and mill into a creature. But we're not even on the reanimate plan, really. It's just a little extra bit of scamming we got going on. There's only 2 a turn, so I don't mind taking this for a little bit. A Witherbloom Apprentice. Okay, I think we will cast this now. Now that we have 2, I don't feel I want to play it all out in 1 turn, and the mana we have available to us allows us to play the combo out in 1 turn if we draw the thing and we have to play out. So, all right. So our opponent have a Daze in their hand. That'd be something they haven't really had a good chance to use for a while. I don't think they want to trade a Daze for a Lotus Petal. So they probably would have kept that so that we can't do anything too scandalous. We stop the attacks. And we'll block here. They're just testing us. This gives us the ability to attack our opponent with this Witherbloom Apprentice if we want to next turn. Which is kind of interesting. Another Lotus Petal. We do like drawing Lotus Petals, don't we? Let's just go in. So they're just going to block here and move the damage onto the Thassa's Oracle. But we'll see if they see it. No, they think we might have tricks. Right, we can get some free damage in. Play this out. And we'll play another Witherbloom Apprentice, I think. The mediocre beats are coming. This is not how either of us wanted to play this game, so we're in the mud. But at any point, our opponent can just get us. And they can use the Thassa's Oracle in play to Cabal Therapy themselves to get the Dread Return that I believe is in their hand into the graveyard. And then they can reanimate the Thassa's Oracle they've just sacrificed. So, Step Through or Cephalid Illusionist is still going to be lethal here, and there's not a great deal we can do about that. We just got to hope our mediocre men can get there. Right, they didn't cycle Step Through end of turn, but if they draw it this turn, they can cycle it and play their guy and do everything. Alright, now attacks. So now they can double block a Witherbloom Apprentice here. Another land, that's probably not what they wanted to see. Animate Dead, what does that do for us? Not a lot, as it turns out. If they double block here and we take out their nomads, that's not the end of the world for us, is it? Okay, I'm just going to take 2 here. I don't care about a life total, so I'm just going to keep this Animate Dead in hand. They can't hardcast a Cauldron yet. Kind of incredible, they're not just like cantripping all the time. Alright, they found a Brainstorm. This is probably going to open up their hand completely and cost us the game. But it's been due for a long time. We've had a lot of turns. We're on turn 11 and our opponents cast 1 cantrip. So we have been pretty fortunate to not be dead by now. Although I do have the feeling that our Animate Dead on that Cephalid Illusionist is one of the reasons we're still in this game, because I do believe they had the Dread Return. I'm trying to think what would be in their hand that would make sense that they're not playing. And Dread Return is definitely one of those things. We also only need one instant or sorcery, and we can kill them if they crack their fetch, or 1 fetch. So that's pretty exciting as well. We can just try and get them the fair way with Witherbloom Apprentice. Because Animate Dead doesn't trigger this, because this is only instant or sorcery, it's not non-creature. It's a little bit annoying, but if we can maybe get there and just drain them out with a good old-fashioned Witherbloom. Our opponent spent a long time on that Brainstorm. Step through. They are wizards cycling here. They have a Cephalid Illusionist. They have to crack a fetch here. So we can put them to 2. I don't believe there's another way that they're going to deal themselves damage here. But we do get to see their whole deck here. So we're going to pop their graveyard out. Alright, they're going to start doing the thing. Alright, so we're seeing a Surge Extraction from our opponent. So just going through the iteration, just targeting the Cephalid Illusionist with the Nomads. This makes them mill 3. And they can just do that as many times as they want. And they're going to put all their cards into the graveyard. They have 3 creatures here. But the Thassa's Oracle is in place. They're going to need to find a way of removing that, which is probably going to be the Cabal Therapy. They could have a second Oracle. You sometimes see decks with 2 Oracles. Step through. Pithing Needle. Interesting. Force of Negation. Yeah. Nothing unexpected yet. See what our opponent's deck consists of. Still no Cabal Therapy there. Still no Cabal Therapy. There it is. So yeah, so the Dread Return is in our opponent's hand, as we've suspected this whole time. So they're going to Cabal Therapy themselves with the Thassa's Oracle. Targeting themselves here. We get to see their hands. We get to have full information about how they've sideboarded. Daze, Flusterstorm, Animate Dead. Why were you not just another Dark Ritual? They are going to go for it here. They don't have any reason not to. So I'm not really like they couldn't really play around anything there. I'll have to milled the whole deck. So I don't think this Witherbloom Apprentice combo is looking great in this matchup. We just have to beat some Surgicals, which is doable. So get rid of these Sedgemoor Witches. They're quite slow. We just want to put all our big scary things in. We now know what hate we're up against as well, which helps. So we've got 3 cards over because we have these 2 Assassin's Trophy and this Duress. I think we still want the Duress and the Assassin's Trophy, which means we're probably looking at trimming on things like an Animate Dead here and there, maybe a Troll, and one of our big guys. Maybe the Ghalta goes here. We'll try that. Like we could just play the we could just play the Chain of Smog as a bad mind drop, but I think we're better off just going in for the plan here. Our opponent's just commending us on the play we made with the Animate Dead. It kept us in the game for a long time. Okay, we can Thoughtseize and put Archon of Cruelty into play on turn 1. That's pretty good. I will take that. This is how we came to game, right? Our opponent's mulling into 6. We're going to take 2 cards out of their starting hand. One of them of their choice, though. Unless their hand is like super bananas and we can't really do anything about it. Opponent said they're lagging a bit, so their clock's quite far behind ours. But I think our our approach to this game is probably going to win us the game quickly or not at all. So I think we should be alright here to actually get the full game in and not have our opponent time out. Alright, let's Thoughtseize our opponent and see where we're going. A Force of Negation pitching a Cephalid Illusionist. Interesting. Now what do we do? I think we are still going to do the plan. If they have a surgical here, it's pretty bad news for us. I don't think we need to do this right now either. We probably could have waited another turn. Kind of giving our opponent a bit of free information that wasn't really necessary there. But we are playing around things like days by doing that. If we'd have waited another turn, maybe we could find a different way of assembling our plan. We can play around days. We're going to Surgical us or Flusterstorm. Like, our hand doesn't do anything else. It's not going to get better over time. So we are incentivized to go for it, really. All right, we're just in. That's a surprise. This might just get plowed, though. But at least we are getting some cards off of it. We get one card off of this. We get one card out of their hand as well. And then if they do the plow, that's another one. Or have they got some strange thing instead here? No, I don't think there's anything they're going to have like a Veil of Summer or anything. Yeah, so there's the plow. Get a bunch of life. They discard a card. We draw a card. And Entomb is a pretty nice one. I won't lie. A Ponder from our opponents. So we do have Entomb, but we need a thing to reanimate. I don't really want to play the Entomb into a Daze if I can avoid it. Alright, Shuko. So they could kill us next turn. They only got one card in hand. If it's a Daze, that's kind of annoying. Might as well just wait. Right, so we have a land here. We've shown our opponents some green-black cards. So they might be concerned about some sort of Assassin's Trophy, but I think if they have the combo, they will just go for it here. Cephalid Illusionist. Sure. So if the last card in their hand is Cabal Therapy, then they just win. If the last card in their hand is Dread Return, they win. Yeah, they just have us here. GG's opponent. We got to showcase a really cool play with the Animate Dead there. We just kind of couldn't quite get there. So we ended up with a 3-2 record when it felt... Generally, the deck felt pretty good. Let's talk about it. So there is a trade-off for playing mono black. The trade-off for playing mono black is you have less ways of putting creature cards in your graveyard. By not having Faithless Looting, we can't just go, okay, we've got some creatures in here, we can just chuck them in the bin whilst improving our hand. And the Faithless Looting makes mulliganing a lot better with this deck. Because there are a lot more keepable hands, whereas if we want to put a creature card in our graveyard, we've got to, like, Entomb is the best one. But then we're like, Thoughtseize ourselves, so our opponent gets a lot of information. Unmask ourselves, which is pitching quite a lot of resources to do the thing. And it's just not that great. Obviously, Trolls and Grease are still fine things to reanimate, so, you know, we're kind of offsetting that a little bit by having things that we can put into the graveyard on their own. But there is a definite cost there. I would say Ghalta was pretty good. We reached for it a couple of times. It did what it is supposed to. It's just a nice thing that you can have and then redeploy. And, you know, get a little bit of extra value. It's just kind of like a way of really, really going over the top. Is it a little bit win more? Maybe, sometimes. But it's a good way of getting things out of your hand, especially in this particular build where we don't have access to Faithless Looting to get things out of our hand in the first place. So it makes sense in this particular build. As for the sideboard strategy, we won games and matches because of Witherbloom Apprentice combo. Sedgemoor Witch, is this a thing we actually require? That is an interesting thing to ponder on. I'm not so sure, especially not 4 copies. That is a lot. Maybe you could run like 2 and then free up a couple more slots to have some like actual stuff like, I don't know, Fairy Macabre would be quite nice. I think we would have been able to have win that. Like, you know, Fairy Macabre would have really helped in that last matchup. It's also a thing you can use to defend against Surgical sometimes. But that's kind of where I want to be. I think the reason why Fairy Macabre is good as well is because A, it's a 0 mana thing that you can do on your opponent's turn, but it's harder to interact with. And also, quite a lot of people against Reanimator are going to be boarding in things that make our stuff cost more. You know, Thalia, obviously not boarding in, but like Sphere of Resistance type things, Thalia, Chalices, that sort of stuff people might be boarding in. And so Fairy Macabre in some of those matchups might be useful as well. Not always, but it is a thing to consider because there's a black-white scam deck as well now that runs Thalia. And you may as well just get it because you're rarely going to want to remove loads of stuff. You're going to want to remove one, maybe two things. So I think that makes sense. As this deck, you know, Reanimator is a little bit hard on the sleeve for me as a deck. You kind of do the thing. There is a little bit more play to it than people consider. But, you know, sometimes if you mulligan to Oblivion like we did before and we ended up with like Entomb, Unmask as our 2-card hand, I think that's still better than going to 1. But yeah, the deck is a little bit fragile to mulligan sometimes, and, you know, we have Troll of Khazad-dum where maybe we could do with like another land or two. It was definitely a problem we had a couple of times. But again, it is kind of the nature of these decks. This is why I prefer to play decks with more stable mana bases, generally speaking. And obviously what we're doing here is very powerful. We won games on turn 1, basically. We can do a lot of stuff. But the cost is you're going to be mulliganing sometimes, and if your opponent does have interaction with you and your one thing that you do doesn't work, then it can feel real bad. But overall, I would say this is an interesting direction to take it. Is it better than Reanimator? Like, we're doing a lot of that with the trolls and the grease and stuff. So we're kind of in there a little bit, but we don't have like Dazzling Voidwalkers and Bowmasters to sort of play a fairer game. We're just kind of playing this sort of thing. But what I have noticed about Reanimator type decks sometimes is that you don't tend to have that much land in your deck. So sometimes you're using Petals to power out a 2-drop, but then you maybe struggle to get a 2-drop a bit later on, or, you know, hard casting Grief isn't really a thing you can do, whereas like the mono-black scam type decks, like the actual dedicated scam decks, like the one I played at European Legacy Masters a ways back, that, you know, it has a robust suite of mana, it gets to cast its spells. We kind of aren't doing that, but then, you know, we have this other powerful thing we can do. So, you know, whatever you're doing, there's always going to be trade-offs. And I think that's kind of the issue with Red-Black Reanimator, is that we are, or not necessarily Red-Black Reanimator, but any Reanimator, is that the trade-off here is the graveyard is a very easy zone for people to interact with, and people interact with it in the main deck sometimes, things like Endurance and sometimes Lion Sash, but that's usually going to be too slow. There are people playing Hearses and even Ley Lines and Dazzling Voidwalkers main deck are things too. So you're going to get caught out a little bit sometimes. But there's no denying what we're doing is intrinsically powerful. But I think we are doing a powerful thing, but weakening it by not playing Faithless Looting in order to try and be better in sideboard games. And that's kind of an interesting approach. In the games where Witherbloom Apprentice is going to be good, I think you're going to feel it. So, you know, we won a couple of matches off the back of it. That's fine. But in the matchups where you don't want it, you've made yourself weaker as a deck altogether, which is kind of the problem with Reanimator. And I'm not really sure if there's a perfect solution. I think the case is find the solution that works for you. You know, find, if you want to play Reanimator, you play, you know, Rescamimator, you play this transformative one, you play classic Red-Black Reanimator, or the ones with the show and tells, or the mono-black one that has Lake of the Dead, so you can actually just power out things like Grave Titan sometimes. There's different options you can go. And I think Red-Black is probably still the best, but I think this and Rescamimator both have perfectly valid legs, and you can definitely win games with them depending on how the matchups fall. I don't think any of them are strictly better. I think they have different matchup spreads, but Red-Black Reanimator appears to be the most efficient and reliable at doing the really broken thing, which, if you're playing Reanimator, that's kind of what you want to do, in my opinion. So, yeah, I hope you liked this little delve into an archetype that I'm not really overly familiar with. Like, I, you know, obviously play against it a lot, and I've jammed it a few times, but I'm by no means an expert, so don't take everything I say about this deck as the gospel, but I think I've done a pretty good explanation of my thoughts on here. And, you know, we did some cool stuff. It's not every day you get to put a big dinosaur into play. And I like dinosaurs, so I'm happy. All right. Thank you very much for watching. Remember to like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out. I'm trying to grow even more than I did last year, so please help me out with that. All right. Thank you once again for watching, and goodbye. If you'd like to support me in the channel, please check out my Patreon. It has a free guide to budget Turbodepths, as well as 3 tiers of support. A low-cost one that enters you into my monthly raffle for a free donation deck on the channel, a mid-tier subscription that gives you access to my detailed turbo decks guide that is updated every month as well as regular articles. And lastly, the higher tier gives you all of the above as well as a monthly donation deck for my channel. If you're interested in supporting the channel this way, please check out the link in the description.